drifted alarmingly in the betting was, Felsted in the morning continued to drift. It was late on the exchanges to lose. It was something you'd see in a Dick Francis novel, Charles Burns.
The ground is soft. It's
heavy.
It's soft on times.
It's heavy.
Okay.
And a very big warm welcome to the Bar Stewards Inquiry Sunday Sermon, where I am joined for today's show, as usual, my two partners in crime, John Lane. Good afternoon, John.
Good afternoon, Lane.
And certainly plenty to say as usual, I think, this show. Lorne Malvo from Twitter, Chris. Good afternoon, Chris.
Good afternoon, Lee.
Right, we've got some fantastic topics to chew through. It is a very busy show, and we've still got you, and it's not Punchestown. Fuck Punchestown. Although before we get onto the Guineas, John and Chris, I'll tell you, we'll move this forward, right? So, I mean, you know, like we said about the Cheltenham 5 days, and obviously Punchestown are 5 days.
Punchestown should be 2 fucking days.
I mean, well, aside from our flat bias, but I mean, did you see the scrap on them cards? Absolute scrap. I mean, it made Goodwood look Group 3s, Group 2s, didn't it?
It's like the Galway Festival. It goes on for like 9 months, doesn't it? It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Start Sunday before and finish Sunday after. Yeah. Everyone's pissed. But I mean, it's like, I get it. I get the Irish love a good old, sing along and stuff, and then, but it's just, to me, watching that, I looked at some of them cards and it was a massive turn. And this is a sign of things to come. Now you've only suckle at 5-1 on. You've lots of shorties all week in these hurdles and stuff. Is that not more of what Cheltenham's going to become like? In regards, if they go 5 days, fuller odds on jollies.
Yeah,
probably.
You're just diluting every seat. You're trying to make You're trying to make 24. It's like boxing with WBC, WBA, IBF, WBO, Intercontinental, Silver, WBC, Silver. So many belts and champions that you don't know where to look. Who's champion then? Don't know.
Last year's champion's going to be trying to get a mark down for the 0 to 120 mares fucking handicap years, isn't she?
Well, you're going to get all really that shouldn't be there, and that's a fact. It should be championship racing. If you could have one jumps festival a year, it should be purely championship racing and nothing else. But sadly, that's for another show because we're bored of jumps. Certainly for you listeners, you don't want to be talking about Punchestown, do you? No, neither do we. So we're going to go on to the Newmarket meeting. Well, John, Chris, they expanded Newmarket for the first time since 2003 to a 3-dayer. What's your thoughts on that?
Rotten.
Yeah.
I thought it was rotten anyway.
I mean, the thing, again, to me, are we all idiots here? Because we're struggling to fill races. Well, yeah, we are idiots. Yeah, we are. Yeah, that is 100% true. But we've literally got a fixture list that's just beyond bizarre. Some meetings I'll wake up on a Tuesday and there's 6 to go at, and we're struggling to fill lots of single figure fields. We're averaging something like 7 runners a race on the flat so far, which is just dreadful. And, it's Newmarket decided, I know what's a good idea for this year. Let's resurrect the old 3-day festival of the Guineas meeting. And I don't think it's added anything having the extra day. I think the crowd was quite poor on Friday from what I read. And, it was quite dead. And so I'm not quite sure where they're at with this, but I think all three of us agree, don't we, that it's probably not a wise move going.
It's certainly hello to this, isn't it?
Yeah. Anyway, let's get on to our 2 cracking first classics of the season before we discuss the rest of the meeting, and we'll go to the big one, the 2,000 guineas on Saturday, and I think the general consensus is, chaps, that this was a rather good renewal. You know, I'm not saying a vintage renewal, but a very, very good renewal. A lot of messages I've had regarding this, you know, says that Nick the Nip has been on, and he said one for the pod guys. I think this could be one of the best guineas in a long time. The first 4 obviously very good. Luxembourg off to the Derby, but he says, where would you go with the others? Caribus, Native Trail, and Aden. Godolphin will surely keep theirs apart from now on. Well, before we get there, we will look at this race, John, and the 2,000 guineas this year. How do you rate the race?
I gave Caribus 123 for the win, which was round about probably as low as I dare go with him, to be honest. I mean, I think Luxembourg's run the career best. I put him on 118.
Yeah.
And I thought Aden ran to 113. I gave Native Trail 121, which was £1 below his official.
Yeah.
I think the front 4 ran very, very well, and the horses immediately behind that front 4 also went pretty close to the marks. I thought Lucille was £2 below his official mark, given that he missed the kick, had a bit of messing running, but maybe benefit from being at the back, race off well. So I only knocked £2 off him, 111.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it was a very good Guineas.
Yeah, gave me that feel as well. Chris, what did you take anything out of Guineas? Did you sort of just sometimes you'll get a gut feeling for something?
Well, two things sort of sprung to mind is how on earth did Eden get beat in that race before the one it won at the race before? That was ungodly.
Because I backed it.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably it, isn't it?
Yeah.
Unreal. And the other thing is, I hope the Godolphin runners yesterday avoid the Derby, because I'm after timing it. I've got a 33-1 voucher in London for the Derby, so I'm hoping that's then. So that's the only 2 things I took out of the Guineas yesterday. Keep it away from the Derby.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean that's not a bad anti-post voucher at all. I
don't think there's any danger of Godolphin sending either of them to the Epsom deal.
No, I think you're certain to get a run, and you're not going to be that price. So nowhere near. But I said to John, we were messaging on Saturday after the race, and I did say I did feel that Luxembourg was I believe the best prospect out of the race, simply because I genuinely think that mile and a quarter races, mile and a half races this season, I genuinely think he could be unbeatable. I think to do what he did in that Guineas, where the track, we knew the track wouldn't suit. Everyone knew the track would just not play to his strengths. He actually stumbled quite bad after the start, which is never ideal. He was always on the back foot. Obviously not got the foot of Caribus. But having said that, John, I'll just rebound a thing to you here. If you were to run the Guineas at Newbury, right, same runners, same pace setup, everything, right? You know, you'd make Luxembourg a lot shorter, wouldn't you?
Well, yeah, because I mean, he stumbled, hasn't he? He was probably held up a little bit further back than the front, so you maybe try and ride him a little bit handier. Although I don't think those front 3 all benefited where Aiden was just off the front rank. I think Aiden's done really well, actually, to keep on like he has, because he wasn't really ridden how I would have wanted him ridden, dropping back in trip. He didn't really finish his race off. He certainly didn't give the impression he wants a mile and a half. I think he'd be a French derby horse rather than Epsom.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Luxembourg's probably on a par with them two, given all things being equal, which is hellish good, really, given the fact that he's almost certainly bred for 10 furlong. You couldn't be casting about 12, but you know, he has that lengthy look of a 10 to 12 furlong horse rather than powerful mile. So
yeah, I mean, Nick the Nipper also went on to say about Aidan. He said that it was a great pick from you, really, to find that one to obviously bolt up. Was it in the Fielden? I can't remember the name of it. Was it won?
Yeah, he won the Fielden. Sometimes I amaze myself.
Yeah, and obviously fourth in a Guineas, which, you know, again, I think the horse has got a lot more to come. So I think it's a cracking pick as well.
His attitude is fantastic, the horse, and if they don't overface him this year, I think he could be really, really good next year.
Yeah, there's no reason why that horse can't win some really, really big races. I agree with you. I think got to campaign him right. You know, maybe keep him away from the best of the best, if you like. But that don't mean you're not going to win Group 1s. That just means you just kept away from the.
I mean, I'd definitely not take him to Epsom.
No. So we don't know. We'll tell you got to send an email to Harry Potter like you've sent one to Tom Clover, John.
I might have.
John Tom Clover about Papa Cocktail. Yeah, so there you go. Just thought breaking news there on Bastard. And Tom replied. And get a lovely reply it was as well. No, nice. John's to share private information and all.
Oh, okay.
John?
How many?
Well, let's just say he's taken my thoughts on board vis-a-vis last night, and I think we might, if we're lucky, see a dropping trip next time, and hopefully a bigger field with a bit of a gallop on.
There we go. Barcia's exclusive. Clover listens to Jonas Lang. Yeah, there we go. That's what it's all about. Marking the cards. Going back to the Guineas, there's one thing that I need to mention that I think is very underplayed, and I'm surprised we're not seeing more of it in the media outlets. One what I'm reading and different people on Twitter. There's a draw bias this meeting, isn't there?
Maybe.
I don't think there's a maybe about it. I think it's clear. I think it's open and shut case. I think there's nothing that's come down this far wing in the big field races anyway. Even the smaller field sprints and stuff, everything's far side. Look at the 2-2 sprint for the Haymaker of Hugh Morrison's and North Link Mark Prescott's. Where did they come? They were separated from the pack. They didn't go with the pack. They were sort of like they weren't on that far rail. And the Clarks confirmed it. He said the stand side is the slowest place to be. So are we a bit quick here? Everyone, I've seen everyone on Twitter, Caribus, what a machine, blah blah blah. Right? To me, had the best draw. I think that was a place to be on that side with Luxembourg, etc. I'm not saying that it's enough to turn around the form or anything like that. I'm not crabbing Caribus. But what I'm saying is, it didn't help Native Trail in stall 15. I can't have that. Lou Sale as well in stall 12. That's the other eye catcher. That definitely gets a mile. Lou Sale. So they've got a lot of options with that. But you look again today. Was it we'll move on now to the 1,000 Guineas, John, and we'll dissect that if we can. Having Nell Gwyn form, etc. But again, right? So like you've got a 13 runner field, winner stall 3, second stall 9. That's ran well. Stall 4, and you know there are high draws running well in behind them, but they're not winning. They've not done it all meeting. They've not won all meeting. The high draws on the straight track have just not won. And so I think it's underplayed. People haven't noticed. People, even yourself, John, who's a good judge, even you said, well, maybe. I'm telling you there is. I'm saying that, you know, the Clark says it's slower towards the stand side, and I just think Native Trail, we might be a bit quick here, and especially as Appleby said after the race, he said even though he's won here, Newmarket's not his track. It's yeah. I mean, again, John, it's just another hypothetical question because we like these. So let's say they reoppose in which they won't do because they probably said they were not going to clash again. But let's say they do at somewhere like St James's Palace, right? And they're going to make Caribas favourite, obviously, right? Would you be a Native Trail backer if it's like, say if they went something like 5-4 Caribas, 7-2 Native Trail? Are you a Native Trail backer?
But each way wanker him.
Well, that's it. The old each way dirty thief. But even at 7-2, 50 odds, you get 7/10 of your money back, John.
Well, I certainly couldn't back Caribas at 5-4. Confirm the length and a half against a horse that possibly had a bad draw, possibly didn't accelerate into the dip as well as he might have. So at those prices, no. I couldn't back Caribas, but it wouldn't surprise me if Caribas did confirm the form either, because I think he's a very good horse.
But as we've said, it's an exciting Guineas, and I think there's a lot of things people can look at. I think something like Lusail for Hannon the Cannon, they'll be probably looking at some French races for that. The 7.5 furlong races, no problem for Lusail. Lusail does get a mile though. I'm adamant. I'm not bothered. On an easy mile, I'm not a problem with Lusail getting the trip. I wouldn't necessarily back it around a stiff mile, but yeah, I was impressed with Lusail from that draw as well. It was coming on real nice in the closing stages, Lusail.
Coming home a bit better actually, and not in fourth because I had a bit each way on the sports.
Well, you mentioned him, yeah. You said it. He said it was a ludicrous price. I think he was. I saw him on the morning, John. I think he was like 95s on the machine.
Yeah.
And I was tempted. I was doing something else, but I was like tempted to have a little bit at 95. I think, how can you be 95?
He couldn't be. He had to beat the fire yachts for Mike. Well, I said that on Friday night. He had to beat the fire yachts. I'd have been astonished if Fires had finished in front of that.
Yeah.
And the Fires was like 12-1 at the time where it started, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it's very solid form anyway. And I'm not knocking, if people listen to this thinking, you're just knocking a Guineas winner Caribas. I'm not. I think it's a very smart horse. And the bearded jockey, he's tweeted about if Doyle would have hung on to Caribas longer, he'd have won more impressive, etc. Possibly. These are all opinions, and I do respect a lot of people's opinions that I follow, and that could be the case. But
it was a bit disappointing that the kilt horse didn't manage to confirm the form, wasn't it?
The thing is, I mean, we're all betting where the kilt's going next with Royal Patronage, John.
I know, I'm a bit surprised you didn't show him in at Chester to put him spot on for Dante, but...
This will be in a 0-105 handicap by the end of the year.
Doncaster.
I know, the kill. I mean, poor Royal Patronage. If you could pick a trainer, sadly for Royal Patronage, it's not going to end well, I don't think.
I mean, he stuck on. Credit to the horse. Considering he led that fairly, he stuck on reasonably well, but it's probably bottomed him out. Because he's probably gone half a stride, toe, and you can see him being very keen at York.
Well, that's it. That's a race we would, if we owned it, been lucky enough to own something like that. There's no way we'd have run in the Guineas. We'd have told Kilt the fuck off. We'd have just said, no, we're not. What's the point, idiot? You'd have just said, get it ready for the Dante, and then we'll. And if we feel we want to go Derby or we want to go King Ted.
Yeah, and by the way, we're not leading in the fucking Dante. And 96-year-old Joe Fanning's not fucking riding.
John, if I was a wealthy man, a really wealthy man, I would put an horse with Johnston and you'd be my racing manager, having daily liaisons with him.
It'd be on pay-per-view on Sky, wouldn't it?
Some dream scenario. I know, sad life, I leave.
Ringside.
Yeah, I would. That's something.
The kilt knocking the living out of each other.
Yeah, he suffers no falls the kilt. He didn't speak to Racing TV for about 14 years after getting face on, so I can imagine some real battles. 1,000 guineas, John. Cache, franking the very, very strong Nell Gwynn form, like we said.
Yeah, as we said at the time, like,
yeah.
we had a bad Nell Gwynn winner there.
No, I mean, this is it. I mean, that was a curveball. But again, you know, we've seen it at Newmarket so many times. You get on that front end, you know, you keep rolling. She's obviously got a very good constitution. You can't knock the fillet. She's
fighting on stairs, cripples, and horses that want further.
Yeah, the French horse of Farb, Zelly. I would be amazed if that's not in some kind of Oaks, whether it's the Prix de Diane or something. She's entered in the Coronation, but she just looked totally outspeeded there today. She just ground it out and stayed on. And whilst I've got a lot of respect for Zelly as a filly, she's a nice filly. She's just not got the pace for a mile on that evidence. Tuesday was third. Obviously, there was market confidence behind that. Just had every chance. Nothing. Prosperous Voyage shaped the best for me of the ones that's ran well, and that puts the context of the form, I think. And I come to cash here running to 110 tops.
I give it 111.
You would just one.
I know, just to be fucking awkward. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The one again, I'd be wary of taking it out the race because I think she's pretty exposed going into it. That was Sandrine of Baldings. I thought she travelled up nicely, made the ground down the possibly unfavoured stand side.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, she's run 104. I mean, if you say she gets a better run, you're only maxing her out at 108 anyway, which is what she did last year. You know, I don't think they're a great lot.
No, I don't. And the thing with Tenebrism, and I got asked a few things today about Tenebrism because it seems everyone had the same message from Ryan Moore regarding how good Tenebrism was. Get on Tenebrism, blah blah blah. I watched the Cheveley Park back again, and the fact that 3 of the first 4 home were on that stands rail last autumn, and it was sent to be a stands rail sort of day, put me off because the 4th horse is Nick Bradley's in very good, and even though Tenebrism showed a real sharp turn of foot, and I do think she is a sprinter. I think that's it. She didn't get home today 100%. She's not a miler. She's probably a 6 7 furlong filly. Do I think she's top class? No. I think she's very good, but I don't think she's top draw. That's my take on it. John?
I certainly wouldn't have written 120 anytime soon.
No, I think, like you say, she could be 110 sprinting, something like that, maybe. Anyway, right, that's enough of that. I think we've had enough reviews. Also, Andy McGee's been on. He said, "Why did Spencer go from the middle of the track all the way to the stands rail on light infantry?" Andy, easy. It's fucking Spencer. An idiot. What do you get if you Simcox jockey? What do you expect? Just more of the same.
Well, you give that horse a chance, did he? At all? Right.
No, and to be fair, light infantry is probably a nice horse as well. You know, I've no doubt that'll be a real nice horse this year. And
somebody was saying Jersey Stakes for that after the Guineas. I thought, for God's sake, I mean, if you're going to go to Ascot, you've got to run the SJP, haven't you? The favours all look right.
Yeah. I mean that's it. If you've got to find a race that favours something dropped out, because that's the way they do things. Sadly. Okay. One final take before we move on from the weekend's racing. John, I was particularly upset with the Doncaster ground yesterday evening. I thought it was a disgrace. Now, I've listened to Sir Mark Prescott pod on the advice of Stuart Williams, friend of the show, trainer Stuart Williams, friend of the show, and he said about they have to water now because of the grass, and that's because the grass they've created over time. They have to keep watering it.
Yeah, the rivers in the shit, and
it sounds that way. I mean, I respect what Sir Mark Prescott says because he knows a lot more than I do on the subject. But at the same time, all they were doing for me last night was just knocking the top off, and you just got this mound of turf just flying up and into runners' faces in behind. It was not a pretty sight to see, I don't think. And the Times suggested it certainly wasn't quick. You can't be running Doncaster's races 4 seconds slow and be saying this is good to firm ground. Nice horses as well. 80 plus horses, and they're getting within 4 seconds of standard on the straight course. And that's the relayed one in essence. I mean, that's the one that's had the the drainage, the new surface. I'm fed up now of talking about it because the probably our listeners are as well. But it's thing, isn't it? We're supposed to be creating a fair surface for, or just a quick. Why not? What is wrong with good to firm, John?
nothing at all, and they can't even argue that there is anything wrong. But they've got it in their heads now that safe is good or slow, and trainers don't help by taking scores of horses out the minute there's any firm in the going description, which makes Clarks get the wind up, and when Clarks get the wind up, they reach for the taps.
Pretty much. If I needed a fast put this way, looking at how Doncaster water and their posse, which is quite heavy, and this is what you need to look at with certain tracks. I think if you're an owner, is if I needed a horse that wanted good to firm ground, I would now Doncaster out for the summer. I wouldn't go there because I know what's coming. They just simply over water, and you'd end up with some like real false racing surface. So for owners out there, if you've got runners that want good to firm ground, don't run at Doncaster this summer. It looks like some of you have taken heed with the amount of runners there on Saturday night. 5 runners, 6 runners, 7 runners, 4 runners, 8 runners, 5 runners, 5 runners. And there should be less than that if they carry on chucking that amount of water on. Okay, we'll move on, and we'll come to a good question now. Funny question. Let's add some fun to the show. We're boring. Rory Swandell with a question of the day from here. Good question. He said, chatting to a mate. He says, not a hot topic, but you don't see many shins or priests at the races anymore. Socks seem on their way out. And John Joe sounds like a man with a sheepskin jacket or two. What wee things have you guys ever noticed changing over the last few years? Chris, I'm coming. What have you noticed change about the great racing arena?
I think your correspondent is right. We were just sort of deliberating. Other than John Motson, I can't remember seeing a sheepskin in the last sort of 20 years. I don't know what that is, but they've fallen out of favour. And also gambling priests. He's right. I used to get priests at the races, but my answer to that is they're probably all in jail for being child molested. That's why you don't see them. So that's easily answered. But I think also, I mean, look, bookmakers, certainly in the South, be immaculately turned out. And when I went racing last, sort of before the lockdown, they look like they cover themselves with glue and run through Oxfam. There's people in fucking shorts, T-shirts, and bookmakers, certainly the rails bookmakers, all used to be immaculately turned out. I think it goes to the fact that people don't bother dressing up anymore. Everything's smart casual, isn't it? So I think the dress code has changed in the last 20 years, to my mind. It used to be very smart, but now they're not.
Yeah, I can remember like in the late 80s, early 90s, even the ground tracks. I visited Wembley a few times, and the bookmakers were immaculately dressed. Suits, big Cuban cigars.
Morris, head to toe. You know, absolutely, you could cut your fingers on the creases of his stride. So, yeah, I mean, people got dressed up to go out, but they don't seem to do that now.
No, it's like you say, it's a pastime. I mean, you look at old photos of ground tracks, things like that, and the chaps that paraded the grounds had ties, suit and ties on underneath their white coats. They had a bowler hat on, and they had suit and ties under the coats as they're parading the dogs. It was all very, it was a very upmarket, portrayed a kind of upmarket kind of feel, and yeah, I think we
remember Percy Thrower. He used to cut the grass wearing a pipe on. You know, people got dressed up to pretty much do it outside. So, that was how people dressed. I think it is quite sad that people feel able and permitted to turn up in pretty much anything. I'm not sure that having smart bookmakers is necessarily good for business. I think Jeff Banks was ranting a couple of weeks ago. But it is, they used to be immaculately turned out. You used to see in the South people like Alan Kinghorn, fabulously dressed. You look like film stars, and that was just the way you turned out. And it's quite sad that you see some of them now that look like they're going down the tip, don't they?
I mean, Jeff Banks is quite controversial. There's probably half of the stuff Jeff says I agree with, or the other half, I just completely disagree with. But on attire, I actually do think that, because it's like if you go for a job interview or you go for a whatever, and if you're putting £50 of your hard-earned money, I think you'd be drawn more to the smartly dressed person to put your money with than, say, somebody with no socks on.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, they are turf accountants, so the name sort of implies some degree of sort of respectability, professionalism, and I think you see people turn up the races now and look dreadful, absolutely awful. But that's the way of the world, though, isn't it?
Changed, yeah. John.
Well, the bokey could be stood there stark naked with weeping sores on his bell end if there was half a point difference. I know I'd be betting with.
So if it's the 9s, 2 and 4s, you ain't going to banks, John, are you?
Absolutely not. I mean, plus you'd have to engage in conversation as well, and I never liked listening to people that were born 3-0 up and are convinced they scored a hat-trick.
Old Jeffrey getting some stick.
On the subject of bowler hats, the last time I saw a bowler hat, it was being worn by Bob Todd in a softcore porn film while he was spanking some lass in the shower.
Yeah. Bob Todd was an old was a farmer before he came into acting, and I had a conversation, and I'm sure that the Twitterati will sort of pile on this, but I had a conversation with Jim Davison, of all people, at a sort of a charity event, and he was telling me that in show business at the time there was nobody that could drink more than Bob Todd.
I can believe that.
Drinks he used to have don't exist in the modern world. He used to have like sort of whiskey, vodka, and Coke in a pint glass, and chuck that, boom, and another one. He said the guy was absolutely unbelievable. He could drink, and even the sort of so-called heavyweights. Incredible guy. But he's a farmer, so he was sort of quite rough and ready anyway. But yeah, drinker.
And with regard to the sheepskin coat situation, I've never owned one, but the only trainer I remember having one was one Dennis Yeoman, who used to train at Scorton.
Yeah.
And he was a bit of a fish. Yeah. We were over there, and my mate was putting some leathers on one for him. And we'd had a bit of chow on. We were about 90 minutes getting these leathers on. And we were going into the house for a coffee. And as we went in, his missus is coming down the stairs with a suitcase. She said, "That's it, you fucking bastard, I'm off." And she went straight past us out the front. And Dennis turned round. I thought he was going to go after her. And he said, "Do you want tea or coffee?"
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Somebody.
Yeah. Good stuff, that job. Right, moving on. Star Sports been doing some cracking interviews, and credit to Ben Keith, Simon Knott, and the gang for doing the Betting People series. Some series are more interesting than others, naturally. And this week they've had on Patrick Veitch, who was certainly a big factor in my interest in the game, to be honest. With Clive Holt, my father being a bookmaker also, but Patrick Veitch certainly acquired my attention when I was about 16 years old, and
quite 100 quid's worth of pound coins in the phone box, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. He started a very sour relationship with my mother as I ran up massive phone bills listening to the professional Patrick Veitch. 8:30 p.m. messages the night before.
Christ, I remember when I was about sort of a little bit old, but I was living at home. I took a day off work, terrified, because I figured this is when the phone bill's landing. And I got to the front door and managed to squirrel the phone bill inside my shirt when the postman delivered it. And the bill was about 400 quid then.
Yeah. I mean, as always with these sort of like, when you're young and you're learning the game, these tipping lines, etc. The first time I rang Patrick Veitch, it was a Halloween chase meeting at Newbury. I always remember the Halloween chase, which they've now moved to another meeting at the later on in the year, which is quite weird. Anyway, and he tipped a treble, and all three won. They always do. The first time you ring, they'll all win, because if they don't, you won't ring again. You'll just go, no, fuck him, he's useless. So of course they all won. And as a 16-year-old that had got a bit of a tash and a beard and could get in the bookies, I won about 100 quid, like on my very first bet, trebles, doubles, singles, and I got the bug. I was like, yeah, this is awesome. And I think then he went on a terrible run. And like I said, the first phone bill came in, and it was like about 300 quid, and my mother went absolutely berserk, and naturally, and there's a lock on the phone, so it was a case of drawing my savings out in pound coins to go to the phone boxes. I didn't realise that at the time that phone boxes charged you even more than the home phone lines. So your pounds, you used to watch the credits go down on the digital numbers. It used to go like 99 pence, 98, 97, 96, 95. 90. I'm thinking, steady on, slow down. I was terrible having a wank in a call box with a load of... the number of times I've been there for like 5 or 6 minutes, and like you get someone queuing up outside the phone box, not seeing me speaking because you're listening to it previously, and I've got a pen and paper, and they're actually staring in the phone box. Are you using this phone? Are you using this phone? You're not speaking, And he's like, so he had all that. So thanks to Patrick Veitch.
He was one of the first pioneers of the premium rate line, but he used to spend 15 minutes talking about the weather.
Yeah, he was a bastard.
Lovely morning here on the Gallops. You can smell the new mown hay and all that. Come on, you're running out. There
was one time I'd spent 3 quid. Already, and he talked a bit about the weather and the ground tomorrow, and then he went on about he just spent the day at his father's, John Veitch. John Veitch had bought this lovely mare, and he spent the day with him there, and and he had a lovely day.
He wasn't the worst. You remember old Colin Tinkler? He'd spend 15 minutes telling you he'd been watching the Falls gallivanting at the stud, and then tell you have your fucking lot on a 3s on pork with Graham McCart riding in a selling hurdle.
Yeah, the conclusion was terrible with Colin Tinkler, weren't it? It would be an odds-on pork in a I don't know.
Half landed. Yeah.
But anyway, so that's worth a listen for any listeners. Go to Star Sports and listen to Patrick Veitch. I think it's worth a listen.
Did he used to knock Emma Ramsden? I thought am I getting mixed up?
I don't know. To be honest, Patrick Veitch is so private.
Yeah, but she isn't.
No, but yeah.
She'd have told somebody.
I think
Well,
the interview was good, but like all of these things, the sort of questions that you want to know the answer to, he's not going to answer. So I thought it was enjoyable, but I come away with the impression again that if he was made of chocolate, he'd eat himself, and that's what you want in a very person. He's got that kind of arrogance, that sort of that kind of air about him. But yeah, it was good. It was enjoyable. But ultimately, what you want to know, he ain't going to tell you, is he? That's the bottom line.
Well, he was one of my heroes, along with Clive Holt, Fine Form as your guide. And if you haven't read that, you need to read it. It gets your heart and soul pumping, unlike the bookmakers these days. Which now brings us on to our next thorny topic, the single customer view. And there was a big debate this morning again on At the Races, where they actually got Labour MP Caroline Harris, who has been obviously she's one of the fronting the reform groups for reforming gambling, and she's been very critical of bookmakers, in particular the way they've handled people that suffer harm from gambling. And to be honest, I do resonate with a lot of what she said. In fact, that to be honest, most reform gambling groups and people I've spoke with, I do agree with a lot of what they say. I just don't agree with the solutions, because it's like the old thing that it's like the old walnut and sledgehammer routine with trying to solve something. And Caroline Harris today has apparently come on At the Races, quite positive, really, said she doesn't blame, she's not targeting horse racing and sports betting. She just wants to target slots and casinos. Well, I'm a bit pissed off by that, because she's never made that really clear, not totally 100% clear, until her interview today on At the Races, where she made it very clear that horse racing and sport wasn't her target for restricting players. And we know that players are already being restricted, which is very sad. Now, the problem with the thing is with Caroline Harris is, if she had been more clear with this, and from the very, very start, only 3% of people play online slots and casinos. So that basically means that, you can work that out. So like 3 in every 100 people are just solely slot and casino players. The other 97 can quite happily bet away on football, golf, horses, tennis, whatever. And sadly, it's as if they're trying to bring these rules in to hinder everyone's enjoyment. And again, chaps, we've got to be we're in definite agreement, aren't we, all three of us, that this is the wrong way to do things?
Definitely.
I'm still not convinced it's all going to go through, because somebody somewhere near the Exchequer is going to say, hang on a minute.
Well, that's the plan behind the scenes. Obviously, Councillor Woodman, good friend of the show, he interacts with a few people of influence, and certainly that's the sort of modus where we're trying to say, well,
does he interact with that one that was looking for a tractor and ended up finding a porn actor?
Tractors and porn actors, John. You love that on the front bench.
He must have had that on voice control when he was doing his search, and he said tractor, and computers thought he said porn actor.
John, the thing is, though, I'm not having this from you, because if you were an MP on Labour front bench on the other side, I could see you there with your big red tie.
I'd have been kicked out of the Labour Party. They don't like socialists.
I know, but I'm just saying, if you were on front bench, and right, so this is what happened, right? You get it, you get a video sent to you, you pop it up on your phone like you do. You never switch your phone on silent either, so it'd be like blaring out.
Yeah.
And it'd come through, and it'd be from McIver, and it'd be some absolutely rancid, rancid.
Yeah, it'd be some woman in a jam, fucking a donkey or something.
Yeah.
And then you'd be put forward, and you'd be said, "Look at this bastard here. He's a Labour MP. He's representing all these nice people in the good northeast of England, and he's sat there."
I'd just adopt the Townsend defence and say, "I'm working on a book." exposing all this filth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that be straight off.
Yeah. And just anyway, good stuff that John Manor. Harold Roberts, poor Harold Roberts, good friend of the show. He enjoys our tips and he's thanked us numerous times. For our good tips.
He's thanked us numerous times. We haven't had numerous. he's maybe thanked us twice.
Yeah.
For both winners.
Yeah. I am probably over egging it there. But anyway, he's been on his Harold, and he said the thing is for me with this SCV lock, and I agree with him. You know what's happened to the old customer service angle with the bookmakers? What's happened? Why is everyone getting treated like idiots? Well, like Harold Roberts, he said basically he spent about 6 hours trying to get his account back this weekend or last few days. Trying to withdraw some money. They wouldn't have it. They wanted to see this. They wanted to.
No answer to this, and that is the fact that they're employing absolute apes these days.
Yeah.
You cannot get the staff. I mean, any sort of job, such as like customer services, bootmaker, even like the likes of Curry's, it's right across the board. They're shit. They can't be asked to learn the rules or the terms and conditions of trade. And they just sit there and they just talk shite and they pass you from pillar to post because all they're doing is waiting to get through to the next paycheck.
Yeah.
And that's where we're at.
Yeah. And spot on, John. I think that's it. I think we've forgotten the art in this country. I think in high street stores, everything is about customer service and just dealing with customers. And if you have a pleasant experience, you will go back and spend more. And this is the model of the bookmakers. That's the bit I don't understand. I understand they want to stop ghost accounts. I understand they don't want people just buying someone's Bet365 account for 200 quid, using passports, bank statements, etc., to be able to place bets on so they can get on. Right? I get the bookmakers don't want that, and I reckon this is all part of that. But nevertheless, that doesn't stop general nice customer service with people, just to thank them for the business and whatever. And I think Jeff Banks has touched on this, and like I said, there's a lot of things Jeff Banks does I don't like, but at the same time, he's right on this that you should pride yourself on customer service and give the best customer service you possibly can.
Unless there's big collusion.
Unless there's big collusions with greyhound punters, except we don't want to say too much on that, else I'll be in court with Jeff. But yeah, we get it. I mean, this is it. It's Harold Roberts. I totally agree. I think it's a disgrace what's happening with the bookmaking industry at the moment, and I do think they're on the wrong track. And Neil Channing wrote an article this week, and I was a little bit upset by it because I still think Neil doesn't I'm going to try and get him on the show. I think he's agreeing to come on the show, I think, in a pod regarding SCV. But I don't agree with Neil in terms of his understanding of SCW. I really don't. It's very, very simple. Is the SCW. It doesn't involve anything. You don't need staff. You don't need a gambling commission. You don't need anyone. It's a wallet that sits in Skrill, PayPal, whichever payment provider you want. You put your £1,000 in there for the month, right? You can deposit with any bookmaker you choose. Bookmakers aren't going to worry about money laundering. It can go back to your wallet. If you win 2,000, you can still bet that 2,000, but you've only got £1,000 until next month. I honestly think if you're going to do something, that's the best solution, because that way they can still attract you with loyalty bonuses, free bets, and they aren't going to worry then about people moaning, saying, "Oh, free bets has made him kill himself," and all this rubbish. It's that can't happen, because under the wallet system, they know that that's clean, affordable money. That's all the bookmaker needs to know. You don't need staff. You don't need compliance officers. You don't need ramble idiot, Eastern Europeans talking rubbish on Betfair chat and things like that. You don't need staff. You don't need you don't need anyone. You don't need ombudsmen. You don't need nothing. But again, like in life, like the politicians of this world, you don't make money if there's not a mess, John. Isn't that correct? There has to be a mess for them to make money.
Well, somebody's going to make some money out of it. There'll be some sort of quango set up, you can guarantee that, to oversee things. And as I say, I'm not entirely convinced it's all going to go through because, as I say, the Exchequer's not going to like. They're not going to like any projections that they're saying from this.
No, so we're hoping there's a big late intervention from the Treasury. But that was what I was originally informed about 6 weeks ago, that was the official Treasury position, that they wouldn't be considering horse racing under single customer view or any other kind of madness staking restrictions. That's what I was honestly told, and that's from the horse's mouth.
I don't think the economy can take the hit.
No, well, you don't know. I mean, they chuck money about, these idiots. Like, as long as it's for their own means, they'll chuck it about. I think that's how we've lived for the last 2 years. It's a disgrace. But anyway, we'll move on to one final question, and then we'll go to the Jimmy Lindley. And Tony Harbour's been on, and he said, I'll put this to anyone really. Would you rather have an 85 rated horse carrying top weight in a 0 to 85 handicap, or the same horse carrying 8 stone 8 in a, say, 0 to 105 handicap? John?
Depends very much on the horse.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, if he was going the right way, I'd stay in 0 to 85 company until I went above 85. But that said, if he was also was on the way down a bit and he'd been carrying nearly enough top weight, I'd maybe try and nick a 0 to 105 and somewhere like Ascot, drop him out and hope he finishes off well with the lightweight. You know?
Yeah. I mean, there are different. I mean, there was a horse that we backed yesterday, John Ingra tour, and that was carrying 8 stone 7 in a 0 to 100. I think it was off 82 or something, and that was nearly bottom weight, and that's won by a potato field. So I think it depends on the size of the horse, physical. Because remember, I think as long as you got the physical scope, it doesn't really matter what grade you're into to a degree. But I would say that class does have an impact. I would say my advice to you, Tony, is in shorter distance races, class might be more, because no one can seem to pinpoint what weight means. Like some people, some form students will say like 3.5, 4 pounds a length for sprint trips. Some will say £5, some as much as £7, depending on who you speak to. You know, it's so like, John, do you agree that this could be like the size of the horse that's probably more important?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be lugging 10 stone, you know, you don't want something that's barely nothing 15 hands, do you? You know what I mean?
No. So I think that's it. I think the quality of the horse I think matters. But Tony, as a rule, you're probably right in. Well, I know you've asked the question, but I would say 85. We're not knowing the physicality of the horse and the progression, etc. I would say 85 in a 0 to 85. Yes, that I would say that. But there are instances when you can watch a video and you can say, geez, that doesn't look an 85 horse. That looks an 110 horse. That looks outstanding. John will do this on many occasions. He'll message me and say, you know, I really like the look at this. And that's the thing. So that's when you can try and spot progression. So I'm not saying size is everything. It's the way they're put together. But at the same time, you know. So, I know, it's to make everyone feel better.
I want a fella with a 13-inch cock. I said, well, I'm not having 3 inches cut off for no fucker.
That's just like a Ginger Hitler reply, that. And he's terrible. He's a terrible man. Okay, so we're going to finish the show then with Jimmy Lindley. And I don't know if my partner in crime's got anything. I'll kick us off with one I saw on Saturday, and it was down to Adam Norman gets a mention here. Good old Norman. He said he had his Star Sports account closed yesterday. So Ben Keith, what are you doing? Shutting Adam Norman's Star Sports account down. Terrible. These restrictions, I don't know. Anyway, it was on Saturday and it was at Thirsk. And it was the leg where Paul Mulrennan was going for a 14 timer. It was in the 3:55 race. And he was on a roll, was Paul Mulrennan, but he wasn't on a roll in this race because Adam Norman messaged me before the race. He was there at Thirsk and he said, "This is fat and hairy, very fat and hairy," and it's 5-2 jolly. So like you do, you just stripe them, and I think Paul was basically having, I don't know, he might have got the message in the paddock saying, "Just look after this one." Well, he did look after. Right, it was well out the back in the early stages, kept on, never really put in the race. If you've backed it, if your favourite backers, I don't think you'd be at with the ride. And I think Amendoe, because of its condition, i.e. fat, hairy, and probably not at the races, that old Trudy Willie Haggis thought, well, I don't really want a big mark for this. And if I can get 68 and I can go for a 0 to 70 somewhere, I'll piss up with her. So that's my angle for Jimmy Lindley. Amendoe is on the list. John, anything from you?
I didn't have anything this week, mate. No.
Well, I'll fly the flag. And that's the one for us going forwards. So I hope you've enjoyed the show. We certainly have. We won't bore you too much, but I hope there's some pointers there going forwards, re the two Guinea affairs and how we see it. And we're back on Friday as normal with myself, John, Quentin Franks. We need him beat in the Naps table. And Neverlander. That's our 4, I think, for Friday. So that's all from me. Bye for now.